So we'll see as we get into some of this video here. You'll see this is Springer, I believe. But you can see that slight shift back of that center of mass. And he doesn't have a real high leg kick, but you can still see his weight in his back heel before he starts his forward move. One of the important things on this is we want to maintain a shoulder angle that's slightly downhill or parallel. We don't want, when we load into our back heel, when we gather, we don't want our shoulder angle to change and have it be uphill, because that's going to create some early side bend, which is going to cause us to dump our barrel. Okay, so we want to try to maintain shoulders that are parallel or slightly downhill when we gather. And it says right here, leg kick can vary, leg kick height can vary. And we'll get into that with some slides as we go forward here, but it's a gather and go. So it's a 1-2. It's a 1-2 move. And the stretch should happen a little bit later. The stretch should happen during the go phase. So during the forward move, the stride is when you're going to feel that stretch. Some common flaws are allowing the head to move back too much, which we already talked about. So you're overshifting your weight back, and it doesn't really allow you to get off your backside when you do that sometimes. And we don't want our weight to get on our toes either. If we do that, it could affect our direction, and you might see your stride direction start diving into the plate a little bit, and you might see the hitter starting to lose some posture and stuff like that. So here's some examples of the gather. You can see, the hitter, they all look a little different in terms of, the leg lift, but consistent across the board. The hitter loads into that back heel. I like to use the analogy of like when you're trying to squat, you want to squat kind of coming up through your heels. You don't want to push up through your toes. You want to push up through your heels, because that's where your power is, and you're going to be able to. It's the same thing in hitting. So we want to gather into that, load up that back heel. What's up, Eric? How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you, Brian? Sorry, I was a little late.
Was that you coughing?
I don't know. I thought I muted it, but I guess so.
You have COVID?
18, not 19. So.
Okay, and then for the guys that don't know Eric, or you're new this week, that's Erich Pfohl. He's the head coach at Hope International University here in Orange County, and he just
mute me when I talk.
No, we're good. He chimes in every now and then and kind of gives his 2 cents.
Stir the pot. Brian, just curious, you're talking the gather and go. I'm enjoying I never really thought about the back heel, but what's your focus on the back knee position with this move? How do you see that affecting this?
Yeah, we just don't want our knee to get outside of our ankle, where you get your weight too far back. I used to talk about keeping your knee inside your foot, and I think with some of the higher leg kick guys, it doesn't give them enough time if you talk about that sort of concept, So, but generally speaking, if you're not a super high leg kick guy, we don't want that knee to move back too much during that gather phase. Is that what you believe, Coach?
I'm all on board. I think that's the biggest effective timing outside of triggering, getting the foot down and being able to move forward. So we're I think like you, it's generally speaking, rule is keep the back knee inside of the foot, and then there's the variable. There's the outlier that's a freak athlete that can do something different, but certainly being able to try and manage it similarly for those moves. So, and then the consistency of it. I know we've got it looks like I've got one of my players on this call right now that he likes to change his load from pitch to pitch, and so trying to make sure that timing can stay consistent with the pre-pitch stuff is challenging. So
yeah, it's challenging. Yeah, I think when you start to see the back knee getting over the foot, I think you start to be concerned about too much of a shift back of that center of mass, and so you just have to be a little bit careful with that. I think I agree with you. But so that's the gather. When the center of mass begins to move forward, is the beginning of the forward move or the stride phase, and then when the front foot is completely in the ground, that's the end of the forward move or the pre-pitch move. So, and the stretch that we alluded to occurs during the forward move. So you can see there's a gather and a go, and during the go, you'll see a stretch. The stretch does not need to be big and should not be big if you want to handle high velocities. So I have an example of Justin Turner here, who has neutral shoulders. It's not a coil of the shoulders. You don't want to turn the shoulders when you move forward too much. You might see some hitters on some of these videos that have a little bit of a coil, but the more you turn, the more you coil, the harder it's going to be to handle velo. So you just want to be careful about that. So here's an example. You'll see the gather with Justin Turner. So you'll see him gather, and then as he goes, notice the hands. There's a little bit of a stretch. It's not a big stretch, but there's enough to where he can generate a ton of bat speed. But some important checks of the forward move. You want to stay neutral with the shoulders, like I just said. We don't want to coil. We want to minimize that coil. And then we want to hold the pelvis angle into foot strike, okay? So when we lift our knee, depending on how high your leg kick is, you're essentially going to be loading your pelvis a little bit. And we want to hold that into foot strike. And we want to keep our shoulders slightly downhill or parallel into foot strike. And we want to land in what I would call high pitch posture, okay? And that's not like straight up and down, right? It's a slight forward bend of about 20 to 25 degrees. And that transition between that forward bend and then the pelvis firing through is going to create some pretty good separation there. So that 20 to 25 degree forward bend is pretty important. And that you don't want to be any more than that, because then you're going to have a tough time handling the high pitch. Some common flaws during the forward move is over coil, poor balance, poor direction if you're diving in towards the plate or you're stepping in the bucket too much, and then that early side bend that I mentioned before. If we allow our shoulders to kind of move up during that move, that's going to create a little bit of early side bend, and it's going to cause us to dump our barrel, and we're going to have a hard time handling a good fastball up in the zone. So there's early movers. Two pieces allows for early movers. Most hitters are two-piece movers. You notice the one and with the gather, and then the two with the upper half stretch. And it's an athletic move. It's not a robotic 1-2 mechanical move. It's definitely a fluid lower half of upper half move. I think Donaldson really, you can really see the stretch. Sorry. lower half, and then as that center of mass starts to move forward, that's when you see that stretch. And now notice his shoulders aren't really coiling all that much. He's not turning. His hands are moving back, but it's not a big coil. It's a stretch. It's a rubber band feeling. Here's a Beau Bichette. I think Beau Bichette, it's cool because he's got his high leg kick when he's ahead in the count, and then over here you got his 2-strike leg kick. So he adjusted a little bit based on the count. But really athletic swing. You really you can really see the separation between the lower half gather and the upper half stride. Coach, you got anything? Joe?
No, this is good.
I was gonna say, like, any of the coaches out there, I know we got some high school guys. Victor just joined us, and I know Ruben Ortiz just joined us from the West Texas area. But if any of the coaches have the high school guys or the club guys that are on here have questions, feel free, because that's why we do these things. So they're.
I'll get worn out too, but you got D1 Cody Yates on here as well. So.
Do you? And we have D15 on here too. But what I do like, and what I'm noticing about this video with Bichette is that since we're kind of talking about the load and getting the weight back and stuff like that, he kind of flattens his barrel early during his load too. He's not too steep with the barrel pointing straight up. That can affect your plane of the barrel, as soon as you want to launch.
Absolutely. We'll talk about bad angle at launch here in a little bit when we get to launch position, but that's an awesome observation.
Do you guys think that it's kind of like important to, like how you were saying, he adjusted kind of like his stance based off the count? I know for me, I don't really do that because I just like to stay like where I'm comfortable. But do you think that that's something that can really help in that bat, I guess? Because I know for me, I just don't feel as, I guess, powerful, as comfortable when I try to do it. So I just elect not to do it.
So that's Clay Owens. He's a first baseman at USC. So it's good that, even the older guys. So I just want to shine a light on this. If older guys are coming here asking questions, if you're younger and you have them, go ahead and chime in. All right. Sorry, Clay, I had to put you on the spot.
No, just like what I was saying is I like typically sit on pitches. That's what I do, just because I know when you're in college, it's 3-game series typically. So, I mean, the first game I kind of just like take mental notes on like what they're doing to me. And then game 2, game 3, like whatever they got me out on before, like typically I know like that's what's going to come again, especially being a freshman last year. That really helped me, was sitting on pitches. But I mean, basically my question is, do you think it's smarter to try and sit on the pitches or take educated guesses? Or do you think it helps you more when you are adjusting your stance or like choking up on the bat simply based off of what the count is?
Well, I 100% think you should hunt pitches, first and foremost. I think you should look for what you think you're going to get and sit on that and get on time for that. I think look at Beau Bichette on the left here. He's got the high leg kick.
Yeah.
That's a hitter he's committed to what he's looking for right there. When you're that high with your leg kick, you're timing up something. You're sitting on something. You know what I mean? You're sitting off speed or you're sitting fastball and you're getting on time for that, and it's a race and you're going to beat the pitcher to that spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are times when, you might need to be looking fastball and adjusting to elevated off speed off of that,
Yeah.
There are other times when you can just hunt off speed pitch, you know. Obviously not in 2-strike counts, you can't do that. But
Right.
if you're in a hitter's count and you got a hunch that the hitter might be throwing you an off-speed pitch, you know, I think you can sit on that, you know.
Yeah, because it does happen.
As far as the movement in the box is concerned, I've just seen a lot of good hitters over my career where, you know, the pitcher might get the sign from the catcher, he might start his windup, and then that hitter has a hunch that he's throwing an off-speed pitch, and he might take like 2 steps forward in the box, you know? And it's like, oh shit, you know, you're mid-delivery, you're throwing a curveball, and that guy moves up in the box, and if you hang that just a little bit, he's gonna hit that down the line for a double off the wall, you know? So I don't like telling my hitters that you can't move, you know, you got to be in one place, you know. I want to free my hitters up to be able to move, get on top of the plate, move off the plate, move back in the box, move up in the box, you know, maybe set up your stance a little open. If you got a 3/4 righty who's throwing from shortstop, you know, and you're a right-handed hitter, and if you're on the plate where you normally would be, and you dive in a little bit, you got no shot against that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, I just don't want to handcuff my hitters and tell them they got to be in a certain place. But some guys they insist on being in the same place every pitch of their entire career because they want to have that strike zone judgment. You know, and they don't want to mess with that. You know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, so you're saying that you like it's not so much like to maybe like with 2 strikes put your hands in a different spot.
No.
It's more of like, oh, like, you know, like say like for me, like sometimes I get pitched in on certain days, so it just happens. But so like I'll back off the play, like I'll do stuff like that. But
yeah, I'm okay. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not saying like a pitch to pitch adjustment, you know. It's not that I believe in moving. It's that I don't believe in not letting your hitters move, if that makes sense.
And I really think it depends on, like you said, Bill, just a little bit on the type of the pitcher you're facing. And you know, a lot of times, especially in college, you get a little bit of a scouting report ahead of time, so you have more of an idea on what to hunt. So it gives you an idea on how to stand and where to stand and all that. So.
Exactly.
Well, and the question was proposed as a comfortability level too, right? Like where I'm not as comfortable doing this. So if that's the case, then don't do it. You know, I mean, like just as plain and simple as that. I mean, you do what you do more often. If I told you could make $1 million doing business A, but business B is going to give you an opportunity to potentially down the road make 1.5 million. Most people are fine with $1 million. You know, you just do what you do well and do that extremely well rather than searching for the extra. And so there's no reason that you need to necessarily expand on something that's uncomfortable for you, especially in game. You know, I think if you're practicing it midweek and in inter squads, great. But if you're not doing that frequently, then you're setting yourself up for failure, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Good question. Just getting back to the 2-piece move concept, I think most big leaguers are 2-piece movers. I think if you start watching hitters on Twitter and Instagram and all that, and if hopefully MLB starts up again here soon, you'll start noticing this 2-piece move, the gather and go with almost all big leaguers. There's a 2-piece early mover. The gather allows the hitter to see and read the pitch. Here's a smaller gather. Pete Alonso helps the hitter generate power through the kinetic chain. So you can see starting with this lower half, and then as his center of mass moves forward, the stretch. And I mean, it doesn't have to be that big to generate a ton of power. So I really like his swing. This kid right here, this is my best hitter, or 4-hitter, shortstop. He is a 2-piece mover. Really like his swing. Then down here you can see the 2-piece move allows time for leg kicks of various heights and styles. So you can see at the bottom a little bit quicker of a leg kick, a little bit more aggressive. And then my guy Chase is a little slower with it, a little earlier.
Bill's frozen. I wasn't sure if it was like my computer or his computer.
I think it might be him.
Yeah, face.
So, Joe, are these like other coaches for college?
There's a couple, and there's some high school guys in here, and then mostly some of the CBA coaches and players from all over. So. And then one MVP player.
And what?
One MVP player.
Who?
Where's he at? Evan Miranda.
That's
Big,
tough.
big Mexican kid. Tim, I like your background today. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Hey, there you go, man. Better than being on the field, because every time I see the field, my heart hurts a little.
Tim, I want to introduce you to some of the CBA guys from all over. We have Victor Martinez, who heads up the Orlando area for us,
Nice.
Florida. Alfie, Coach Bill.
I see Tony,
Is that Andrew's punk ass?
But
my man.
Andrew's alive.
I'm alive. I'm always alive.
Andrew's alive. I haven't seen him since before quarantine. I thought he was one of those at-risk people that had locked himself in the house.
I am. I'm old.
Yeah, I know. And then we have Jay Matos, who helps us out in Vegas and does a good job there. So, guys kind of from all over. Good to have you guys all on at the same time. And then some players, Who's our youngest guy in here? Is that Ivan? Is Ivan Farner our youngest guy in here? I think maybe. This happened with Billings last week too, where his either his computer or something cut out, so he's gonna have to hop back on and finish where he started. So he says, I got kicked out again.
Oh my gosh.
No
There's
kick-
Tim. Timmy.
He's trying to get back in.
It says Austin, but it's Tim's mug.
What's up, brother?
What's up, Timmy?
Happy birthday, Tim.
Oh, thanks. I'm getting old.
Yeah, you are.
Almost as old as you.
Huh?
Almost as old as you are.
Oh, I know. It's okay. So he said he got kicked out. He's trying to get back in right now.
I need to get after it. Thanks, sir. I'll see you guys next week.
Hold on 1 second. Trying to help him out here. And then if any of you guys, if you guys have those questions, I know Clay, that was a good one. I wouldn't expect anything less than you than chiming in, and you're a very curious individual. So, but everybody else, some, especially players, if you're on here alone and you don't know, what's going on, especially as it gets technical, feel free to ask for clarity, and I know some of us aren't exactly first team all academic Americans, so we're going to need some, I need some clarity sometimes too. All right.
Hey, Coach, about the kinetic chain thing that was mentioned for the two-part swing,
Yes.
the approach to that is from the legs up, so it involves the core just going along with the body and not all arms and legs, correct?
Yes, who's speaking right now? I'm trying to figure that one out.
that's Donovan, my son.
Oh, you're back there. Okay, I was like, who's – okay. So the question again about the kinetic chain, I'm sorry?
It involves the core as well, not just
Right.
from legs up straight to arms, correct?
Correct. So what the kinetic chain is it's really how you use the ground up. So you're going to be pushing off the ground with your legs, but your core manages, how you apply pressure and weight distribution, right? So as you move back, right, your core and your center of gravity, your center mass is going to move over your back leg to help you get, that load effect, right, where you feel like in a strong position where you can push off the ground with that back side. Does that make sense? So yeah, your core it plays a big role in that, but the energy really comes from the ground up through your legs, through your hips, through your torso, and into your hands, and then into the barrel at some point. So that's essentially the kinetic chain. That works both in hitting and in throwing. So you basically have the same. You're utilizing that same process on both sides of the ball there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be let me see here. Is he trying to get in? Oh, he is. Sorry, he's been waiting. But to be clear about that too, right? Your core is not necessarily like your abs, right? It's really around your hips, you know. So what your hips really control everything, okay? Especially in weight distribution and how you load.
And ground up, one, back to front, two, right? You know, making sure that the backside initiates the trigger and makes the move forward happen, not the front side regurgitating that, you know. So just it's a simultaneous deal.
And Billings, we gotta get you your own Wi-Fi so you don't have to steal it from the neighbors all the time.
I think it's because all this video and this PowerPoint, I think, is too much data or too much memory. Sorry about that, guys.
Or upgrade your neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Get my son off of the iPad. So, all right, moving on here. So, some advantages that my hitters have talked about, and some other hitters that I've coached in the past, say it helps with the ability to read the pitch. We're talking about a leg kick here. Helps to feel counter rotation of the pelvis and hips. So the higher the leg kick, obviously, the more you're going to see that pelvis counter rotate and load. And holding that into foot strike can really give you some power there. Helps to hold the pelvis into the front foot, like I just said, and helps as a rhythm mechanism to get your hands up in there. To get your hands in the right place. It helps to stay loose, and it helps with timing the pitch. So those are some things that the two-piece move, I think if you sequence properly, you'll hit for power regardless of your size. This kid is a freshman from Hawaii, came into our program, 150 pounds. And this year he hit an Oppo grand slam, and hit another home run as a true freshman. So I think the sequencing of that lower half, upper half stretch can really generate a lot of bat speed, even if you're a smaller guy, even if you're 150, 160 pounds. So I believe that as a hitting coach, and even as a hitter, man, focus less on what your swing is doing and more on your stance and your pre-pitch move. I think if you can get that down and consistent and on time, a lot of times your swing will kind of take care of itself.
I agree with that. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Joe, Victor here. Hey, one of the things that I noticed that, and you can probably chime in on this, for younger hitters, my biggest challenge is when the hands start going back and they don't arrive to this hitting zone on time. I mean, is there anything? I know that we're building momentum on the way up. I mean, towards the swing. Would it be best if the hands are a little steady towards the contact point, or just let the swing take care of itself?
Bills, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I exactly understand the question. I think,
for example, I know if you notice on some of the swings, the guys' hands are moving back as they're coming forward. I'm actually in most cases for the younger kids that we coach on our end, that's always a problem, getting back to the hitting zone versus keeping the hands a little steadier.
I personally, and I don't know how Erich feels, but I don't think that's as big of a problem as maybe some make it out to be, because I think if you can get that stretch on time,
got it,
as your lower half is moving towards as that forward move starts, if you have that stretch, to me, it improves barrel accuracy to me. Because now you can swing with less effort. I mean, we've all gone to a big league game like 3 hours early and watched pregame BP and how effortless they can hit the ball out of the yard. It's like a nice, easy swing and the ball just explodes off their bat. I mean, what that is that's sequencing. That's the kinetic chain. And that's what we're trying to do is by focusing on sequencing the right way in terms of that lower half, upper half stretch, that's going to set us up to basically allow the energy to work up the kinetic chain and have it be a little bit effortless and loose and adjustable, if that makes sense. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know what.
No, that makes sense on my end because I teach it, but I know certain kids it's a little challenging to get that stride, build momentum. I mean, with the movement at the same time. So, but it's just a matter of getting used to it.
How old are the kids that you're working with, Coach?
Well, actually, I got from 9 to 19, but especially the 12, 10, 12, 13. That age group is the one that as they move into the JV level and they start seeing a little more velocity. It's the adjustment is my biggest challenge when they move up a little further. So that's been the biggest challenge we have.
My advice would be between the ages of 8 and 14, don't worry about swing and miss all that much and just get them moving as fast as possible and creating as much bat speed as possible and build the engine. And then you can always clean that up when they're 14 and they start getting a little bit stronger. But before they turn 14, man, because if they're not moving the bat fast at the age of 14, it's a lot harder to figure it out after that. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Hey, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that's aesthetics too, right? We see the hands going backwards when in reality it's the body going forwards, and it's not so much that the hands are late; it's that the body might be too early or not early enough, and causes that. So I think that's a misconception of teach as well. Same thing. We see pitchers that maybe they got a stab in the back, but if that kid's got an electric arm, who cares? You leave that alone and you just get it out of the way as early as possible. And same thing, you got a guy with bat speed. It's not necessarily that the hands are traveling too far backwards and delaying the swing or causing timing to be disrupted. Sometimes it's just that the front side's either too early or not early enough with that, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's a good point, Vic. So like when you're talking about about that movement, what's the outcome usually? Are they late? Are they?
Well, sometimes we got both. Sometimes they're late. Sometimes they're way ahead. So it's just finding. I get at that age, it's finding the right timing. That's what we're finding because I mean, as soon as they hit that next level in the JV and velocity starts to pick up, it takes a little adjusting. It goes from 65 down to 75, and all of a sudden, it's sometimes I'm ahead, sometimes I'm late. So, but I like you guys are mentioning. I mean, it's just a matter of getting used to just the sequencing and the timing. You just got to get there. That's all.
I think as we get into this a little bit more, some of the next few slides will answer some of your questions on timing too.
Gotcha.
But to me, and this is my opinion, and I don't know how Erich feels or other coaches, but I think that the two-piece movers have less timing issues than one-piece movers. I think one-piece movers, the hitters that basically lift and fall, there's no gather into that back heel. I think those guys tend to stride late, and their hands are moving away from their body as they stride or fall into their front foot. And I think a lot of those hitters tend to be late. So I'm a big believer in the two-piece move, especially because I think most hitters, the most common problem with hitters is that they're late, with their getting their foot down and getting on time. And so I think the two-piece move, because it starts with their feet, allows them to get their feet on time more often. And I think if your feet are on time, you have a chance to do some damage. If your foot is still up in the air, when that ball's moving, by you, you got no shot. You can't start your swing until you get that front foot down. So, and I think it creates a lot of mechanical breakdowns too if you get that stride down late. So.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm old school. I mean, it took me a while to adjust to that front kick. I mean, it's been as me personally as a player. I actually, my dad was starting to show me, hey, you did do that sequencing, just didn't realize I was doing it. But I mean, not as pronounced as some of these guys. But I mean, it took me a little while to adjust to that front kick.
5 years ago, I was the same way. But this year we were second in the country in home runs, and we still hit 311 as a team. So I don't think we're compromising any barrel accuracy while still, driving the ball. You know what I mean? So I think that you can have your cake and eat it too. So
amen to that.
Amen. Hey, Coach. The higher the leg kick, the earlier the hitter needs to start. Gets into what you were talking about, but you can see like Trout, he's leg lifting. We'll start this over, but you can see he's leg lifting at separation. So when the pitcher's hand is working back, he's already starting his move. So it's a much earlier timing with it. You can see another view of this, like he's leg lifted and the ball is, behind the pitcher there. So the key is that he gets his stride foot down with the ball about, 2/3 or 1/3 of the way out of the pitcher's hand. Is how I like to tell our guys, get your foot down, split second after the ball leaves the pitcher's hand. Because everybody says you want to be early, but you don't want to be too early to where your hips slide and there's a pause between foot strike and when your swing starts. You don't want too big of a pause on there because you lose that kinetic chain and it affects your ability to create power. So, all right. So this is a 2-piece high leg kick. So you'll see Bautista, and you can see the timing here where he's the same way as Trout. I mean, he's leg lifting early. Like when the pitcher separates, is kind of when he starts. And it's kind of like my shortstop. It's a little bit of a slower leg kick. And then we'll show you, this is a little shorter leg kick here. Trout again, he's not quite as high, but similar early gather and then stretch during his forward move. Here's a mini leg kick, JD Martinez. This is a little smaller, but he still gets his center of mass into his back heel. You'll see here from the side, right here. See that? So a little bit shorter leg kick, and his timing is a little bit later because of that. So he starts his leg kick later than the other two guys just because it's a shorter leg kick there. So
you could see that separation between his hands and his lower body movement too, how his hands are going back as his body's traveling forward a bit too.
Yep.
I think that's a really good thing because it helps you to, kind of react to off speed a bit more.
Definitely. He loads his hands up a little bit more than I like, but he swings underneath his shoulders so well. He's got incredible barrel depth, and we'll talk about barrel depth when we get to the swing phase. But this 2-piece move and this 1-2 rhythm with the lower half into the upper half allows you to get that good barrel depth and get that barrel on plane early in the swing. And then no leg kick. This is who is this? This is Chris Davis here, but he's, from the front, it's hard to tell. It looks like he might be a one-piece mover. But when you look at from the side, you can see that, there it is. You can see that sway back of that center of mass into that back heel, and boom. So you can still be a two-piece mover without having a leg kick. I mean, there's a lot of guys like that. We showed you Alonzo earlier. Chris Davis barely even lifts his foot off the ground, and he's got a two-piece swing. Boom.
And I will say too, though, that the shorter the leg kick, right, the easier it is to manage timing too.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need the leg kick to develop to gather power.
Yeah.
It does help if you are on time, but that's not something you necessarily have to have. So if it's a timing issue for the younger guys, maybe find a way to eliminate some of the movement with the leg kick, right? And then that'll help them with
I would just caution you against handcuffing them against a leg kick. I used to be that way, and I just think it's such a individual thing. You know what I mean? Some guys, they get that, and it's not for power. You're not trying to like drive into the ground with your leg kick. You're reading the pitch, and it's allowing you to kind of settle into that back heel and then sequence the proper way. So
funny, we had a pretty good draft, 9th round pick a couple years back, and he was a big leg kick guy. And we actually took that away from him, and he went crazy. Hit 370, 15 home runs, the whole deal. And you fall in love with, well, we took it away from him, it should work for more. And the kid on the call right now that's with us, he's a big leg kick guy. And I tell you, it took a long time to not take his away. But he's got so much body control and so much awareness of timing that he's good at it. You leave that alone. You don't need to be the same as everybody else. It's just finding that happy medium for each individual.
Absolutely.
I think one of the keys Coach Erich just pointed out was a lot of it has to do with body control. You have some kids, they'll get up in the box and they're just sloppy. There's no posture. They're just there. They're trying to emulate, an MLB guy, their stance, their swing, trying to be, to me, I call it dancing. I try to tell my guys, stop dancing in the box. Get set, get ready, let's roll. If there's no structure in their entire motive of going into that box, they're lost. So one thing I always tell these guys, apart from having fun, is get focused, structure, get right.
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of the time it works. It gets them back into their zone, because all that dancing in the box to me is a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how other coaches feel about it.
No, I think especially for kids, it's hard to manage, the excess movement sometimes, so as they get older and they start understanding their body more, they have that body control a little bit more. It's a little easier to kind of leave them alone with it, especially if they're being consistent.
Part of it too, Bill's, I don't know how you feel about this, but a lot of it has to go into scouting reports too. I mean, guys that are successful with leg kicks generally have an idea of, maybe like you said, maybe they hunt pitches better than the next guy, or have good scouting reports that allow them the opportunity to be on time a little bit easier, and
really good instincts.
And sometimes that's enough too.
Yeah. I just think, the best hitters in the world are doing it against the best pitchers in the world. So, they're doing it like these guys that I'm showing you, they're doing it against 100 miles an hour, and they're having success. So it can't be, to me, like success leaves clues, right? So we should look at those guys and try to figure out what they're doing and emulate it a little bit, And I think there's a lot of old school coaches, and me being one of them 5 years ago, who wanted to like cookie cut our guys and control them and make them really repeatable and small load, small stride, and none of my guys hit for power, and now we give them that freedom to move and be athletic, and now they're driving the ball and we're hitting for a higher average. You know what I mean? And our plate discipline is better. We're seeing the ball better. So to me, like the two-piece move, if you do it early enough, puts you in a position to lift the ball in the air with power, you know? And that's what I want my guys doing. I want them hitting the ball in the air with power. You know what I mean? So, but I want to get through this. I'm sorry. I hope we don't. I'm not cutting you off, but I know Joe only gives me about an hour here. But
I mean, we can go a little bit past that. You know, if people can get off, they can get off. You know, it's just try to let them allocate an hour 15. You know.
Yeah, for sure. So then we're getting in now to the one piece or the late mover without a gather. So this is Bellinger, obviously a great hitter. You know, and he does not have a shift back of that center of mass. So he starts super upright and he just basically lifts and falls into that front foot. So I haven't been able to find too many others that do this. Pfohl sometimes, Tomei does it. Jim Tomei did it. But basically they just lift and fall. And I think some less athletic one-piece movers, I have one on my team who's obviously less athletic than Cody Bellinger, but he struggles with timing, you know, and he struggles lifting the ball in the air just because his feet are late a lot because he's a later mover. And and I just think one-piece movers can tend to be late with their timing. And Bellinger, you can see he's got incredible barrel depth. I mean, that ball, his barrel's on plane, you know, behind him. So he's pretty good. Here's Tomei. You can see he just lifts and falls. There's no gather. It's just a one-piece move there. You know, I think one-piece movers can feel rushed and can struggle to hit the ball in the air consistently. It's just my opinion. Here's Pfohl, and I found some film where he's more of a two-piece mover, so I'm not sure if he kind of changes based on the count, or based on, you know, he might widen out a little bit more with two strikes, but I found this film of him where you could just tell he's just kind of falling into that front foot. Some checkpoints with the stride. So we've talked about the pelvis rotation. We want to hold that coil early, and then it rotates into foot plant. Okay, we don't want to rotate like as our stride our toe lands. We want to rotate into our front foot. So we want to hold that pelvis as we land into our front foot, and then the pelvis initiates the stretch shortening sequence, which we'll talk about next time. But if we get into it, it's possible to increase the pelvis torso separation. There's a lot of hitters that come into our program that are like 4 to 10 degrees in terms of their separation at the beginning. And with hard work on mobility and strengthening, we've gotten our guys up to about 30 to 35, 40 degrees in terms of separating the pelvis from the torso. But that's more the swing phase. So posture is important. High pitch posture, about 25 degrees of forward torso bend, and then we want to have less than -2 degrees of torso side bend. So side bend is if I allow my shoulders to angle up, then I'm starting a little bit of a side bend in my back, and my barrel's going to dump this way if I do that. So I want to make sure that as I stride and I get to launch position, my shoulders are downhill, and I got good 25-degree forward bend, and I'm not collapsing that backside early.
Can you explain what high pitch posture would be?
Yeah, so high pitch posture is is get into a position which is, about 20 to 25 degrees of forward torso bend, so that we can handle the high pitch and we can get our barrel to that high pitch. Obviously, our barrel is going to work underneath our back shoulder, but the high pitch, it's a little bit more of a direct path to that pitch. And if we bend too much at the waist, we're not going to be able to get on top of that pitch. We're going to have to kind of change our posture and come out of our swing to get our barrel to that pitch, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
What about you, Eric? You got anything to add on that?
No, I mean, we go a tick farther with that as well too, and we talk vertical swing with the low pitch, and having to break posture almost to get down to that low pitch. And I think I saw a video on Trout last week where it was yeah, exactly. It bent over at the waist to get down to the low pitch. I mean, you throw hands down there and yeah, you can touch it, but you're not driving that ball, and so being able to manipulate the body, I think, throughout the course of the swing is critical. And I haven't seen the degrees. We're excited. Next year we're going to get a K-vest to be able to test and kind of look at all that type of stuff. But I know that's something that I learned a couple years back, was getting vertical with the low one. So.
Yep.
As a hitter, for me, if you're I'm in 100% agreement with the high pitch posture, because I feel like you could use your lower half to catch up to something lower. It's really hard to sit on a pitch lower in the zone with your posture and hinge. I use that term, hinging, and then try to find a way to get on top of the high fastball or the high pitch. It's pretty impossible to actually do that, but you can start at a high pitch posture position and then hinge as you react to the pitch if it's down, or you could bend your legs or bend your knees a little bit to catch up to that and keep your posture. Either way, it's a lot easier to react to those lower pitches than it would be the other way around.
There's a way more into it than just what we can do right now, but that's why you see the phenomenon of high spin rate guys pitching up in the zone having success right now, right? Is they're able to do that type of stuff and throw you off of that a lot easier than the guys that are throwing average spin rate down in the zone. It's not as fluid anymore, it seems like.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Real quick, I just have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a player that is collapsing his back shoulder, what kind of advice do you give him to correct that?
Actually, this next slide might actually not that the launch position slide will answer that. So
be on time.
We'll get there.
Hey, Brian, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I have a question. With the kids, when we work around with the kids with the hitting, what's the best scenario and drill for these kids to sit back and go through the zone?
I've got some really good ones that we're gonna get to in 2 Thursdays from now.
Okay.
Next episode.
A really good one that I think they'll really like.
Right.
That are kind of catch-all drills that can, be a one size fits all drill for all your guys.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that.
Mechanics that you want to see. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's some drills too that we could talk about for specific swing flaws that'll be good for you guys down the road too.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's cool.
But some common flaws with the stride would be like a late pelvis rotation. So we talked about that already. Kind of an early stride where there's too much of a pause between foot strike and rotation. So that's just as much of a flaw as being late. So a late pelvis rotation is a common flaw. So no stretch would be like when the torso and the pelvis go at the same time. So you're kind of just turning at one piece. And then some really things to key in on would be bad posture. So like we said, not at high pitched posture or collapsed a little bit with that backside early. So launch position. So this is a big one for me. And what we do is we film our hitters from the side as much as possible, even if it's an underhand front toss or, you know, off a live arm or off a machine. We'll try to get video on a regular basis. And there's some checkpoints, coach, that you can look at to help to avoid that early side bend or the dumping of the barrel. The position the hitter is in when the front foot is fully planted is what we're looking at. So that's launch position. Checkpoints would be you want to see flexion in the front knee. We don't want to lock that knee out when our stride gets down, because then we're going to lose adjustability. We're not going to be able to bend that knee to a low pitch and adjust something that we're a little bit out front of. The real elbow, the rear, that should say rear, not real. The rear elbow should be slotted. So it should be starting to kind of work. This picture actually shows Cabrera with a little bit higher elbow. But that rear elbow should be kind of slotted and working towards the body. And then we want a hybrid barrel. And so what we talk about at Pacific is you have a vertical barrel, you have a hybrid barrel, which is more at a 45 degree, and you have a horizontal barrel, which is like basically a barrel that's, you know, parallel with the ground. We want our hitters to be at launch position at a hybrid barrel because that will allow their swing to be grooved to the middle pitch pretty good. Like, right, you know, thigh high, they can handle it. And then to adjust up or down off of that isn't that great of an adjustment. What we found is that hitters that have horizontal barrels tend to handle the high pitch well, but they struggle on the low pitch. Hitters that have vertical barrels hit the low pitch really well, but they struggle on the high pitch, okay? So we want our guys to be hybrid, sort of 45 degree, so that they can handle high and low and be matchup proof, basically. So we use this in scouting reports too. Like we'll look at opposing hitters and we'll watch film of them, and when they get to foot strike, are they horizontal barrel? Are they vertical barrel? Are they hybrid? Are they diving in at the plate? And oftentimes we'll be able to identify a part of the strike zone where we can just wear them out, you know? You get some of these guys that are vertical barrel guys, man, you could just pitch up in the zone all day long. They got no chance. They're just going to pop it up, you know? Or a horizontal barrel guy, you pitch down and in on that guy, all he can do is roll it over. That's all he can do. Or even like if he's off the plate, throw outside part of the plate on the black, he's just going to roll that over all day long. So I would recommend starting to looking at their barrel angle at launch. And the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about early connection and what that is. That's one of the blast data points that we pay attention to. And it's basically a measurement of vertical bat angle at launch. So we want our guys to be in a hybrid barrel. We want the knob of their bat to be pointed at the catcher's glove, basically at foot strike. And that puts them in a good position to have a hybrid barrel. Some common flaws in launch position would be the hip opening up a little bit early, or you're wrapping, the barrel because you're wrapping with the high elbow and the barrel's getting a little too far behind your head. So those are some common things to look at. But one of the biggest things, Coach, at launch, we want those shoulders to be slightly downhill, and we want the knob of the bat to be pointed at the catcher's glove, and that's going to put us in a position to avoid that barrel dump, right?
Right.
That I call it backside belly, where their barrel goes this way.
Sure.
All they can do is hit flares the other way and roll over balls pull side, and they can't touch a breaking ball unless it's just right down the middle and up. So
yeah, that's really was the results until I started to drill him a certain way, and he got better hitting the ball in the line, hitting it hard. But yeah, I mean, it was a sliced baseball to right center field over and over and over again. and he was seeing pitches really, really well. He just collapsed his backside something terrible.
I bet he's got a pretty vertical barrel, to be honest.
He actually does.
So this is one thing to look at for him is early connection. This is one of the 5 or 6 different blast data points that we look at. Basically, what early connection is, it's the vertical bat angle in relation to your spine angle at the very beginning of the swing. So when your barrel starts to move forward, what is the relationship of the barrel to the or your bat to your spine? When the torso begins to rotate, the bat should be connected at close to 90 degrees. So you can see here, if you get, like, we have some guys on our team that their early connection is like 110, 105, you know, and sometimes it's hard to fix, you know, and for some of our guys, we've tried a lot of different things and they are not able to fix their connection score. And so, but with like these guys, like one of our guys, he's got like an average early connection of like 110, and we haven't been able to fix it, but he's still a really good hitter because we just tell him, like, don't swing at the high pitch, you know. We just say sit on stuff down in the zone and you're going to be okay. And he does all right. He struggles a little bit with a good elevated fastball, but what we'll do is we'll tell him to try to lay off up until 2 strikes, and then with 2 strikes, you're going to focus top down. So you're going to sit on a good fastball at the top of the zone and kind of adjust off of that, you know, because if you can get yourself in a position to handle that high fastball, then everything else should be pretty easy, even if you have a vertical barrel. So,
Cool.
I believe that's it for today. Yep.
And just to kind of recap on the early connection, you know, when I'm working with guys now, I focus on this quite a bit, just to create more consistency and controlling the barrel with early connection at the load, you know, because then it's going to help them, you know, and it actually really helps them with that. I mean, it's a completely different score, but it does feed into the next score, which would be the plane score. You know, it keeps them on plane a little bit better.
Yep.
And then, you know, if they're a little bit tardy, sometimes they're still driving it the other way. And if they're a little bit earlier, sometimes, you know, they're still going to be able to turn on it and not, you know, and still put the barrel and make good contact. So I think it's
this idea of like early connection is another way of talking about vertical hybrid horizontal barrel. It's the same thing.
Do you feel like dumbing that down to as simple as like staying stacked, head over shoulders over hips, giving you good posture is what also allows you to maintain barrel through zone longer? That like is a similar concept for you, right?
I think it starts with this.
Yeah.
Connection, early connection. If you have good early connection, it's gonna be positive up the chain, up the connection.
Right.
You know, you're gonna find things working, you know, later in the swing much better. So that's kind of, Eric, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a big part of my point today is like if you focus on these things, if you focus on your stance, if you focus on your gather and your pre-pitch move, and you know, okay, I'm a 2-piece mover and this is what it looks like, this is my timing, and you get it down, a lot of times a lot of the rest of your swing will take care of itself. You know what I mean? So, and you're connected. And
on top of that, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think one thing, you know, we've seen it a bunch is you want to fix B, but A is the issue, and A is strength a lot of times, you know, where you're lacking core strength to sustain the moves that we're trying to create. And so it's easy to say you've got to have the shoulder tilt here and maintain this barrel angle. But if you're not strong enough to do that with the core strength, you got no chance. And so I think that's one thing that, you know, a lot of us miss out on is sometimes we're just not capable of sustaining those moves. And that's more important than actually training the move itself is putting yourself in position to train that move. Right.
Definitely. Are you guys still seeing my screen here?
No.
Nope, just you.
Okay, good. I want to show you guys a film of one of my crappy hitters, so you can see what me see if I want to find it before I share the screen again. And this is jumping ahead to the swing phase a little bit, but so this is one of my hitters, and you can see when he gets to foot strike, his shoulders are uphill, and so he's starting a little bit of early side bend, and so his barrel goes whoop. He's got no shot. Doing a little bit, but he's actually working on it in this video. But you'll see when he you see how his
Oh yeah. His hands go down; they don't go direct.
Yeah. So if he keeps his shoulders like level or slightly downhill, he's actually he's an okay hitter. But a lot of times he'll stride and he'll just allow his shoulder angle to change, and he just starts that early dump of the hand.
That's the result.
Is that a timing issue for you, Brian?
What's that?
Just that move, if he's down and in time early enough, do you see that eliminate or resolving itself more times than not, versus if he's not quite on time, that's the byproduct, or is that's his swing? I think
if he's perfectly on time, you can have a little bit of belly and be okay. But when his timing's not perfect, like his swing just goes to crap. You know what I mean? So
look at that lower half right there.
Yeah. So, and he was never a really great hitter for us anyway, but I wanted to show you that. And then just to show you one of my favorite drills, since there was the question on that. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a drill that we stole from Driveline, and this is called depth ladder. And so we use it with long bats. These bats are pretty long and heavy. We do it with speed trainers. We do it with different length bats all the time. We're big believer in constraint-based model there with motor learning, skill development. But so this is this right here. This is probably a 36-inch bat right here that he's swinging. But you can see these balls in front on the ground. So we want our hitter, and these are plyo balls that Driveline makes. And the way these balls work is if you hit them square, then they'll act like just a normal ball. But if you clip the ball, like either from swinging too far down or too far up, the ball's going to pancake and it's not going to go anywhere. So it's immediate feedback that you're not on the right attack angle. And so what we want our hitters to do he's going to climb the ladder. So he's going to start on this one, and he's going to hit this one in the air. The goal is to hit the ball in the air and to hit it square. So he's going to swing at this one, then he's going to swing at this one, then he's going to swing at this one, then he's going to go back to the middle ball and back to the far ball. And the goal would be to hit every ball hard in the air and hit it square. So this drill is awesome because it promotes barrel depth. It creates it builds bat speed, and because you're swinging with different weighted implements, I think it builds barrel accuracy as well. So this is one of my favorite drills of all time, and you can just watch Chase go through it. And it's super hard with these weighted bats, but our guys love it. So this is one of my favorite drills. You can do it with regular balls, but you can cheat it with regular balls. I think these plyo balls from Driveline are one of the best hitting tools out there. So
just to give you a hard time, Brian, we can't afford those, but we use tennis balls. So
Cool, man.
Serves the same purpose, though. You're right. If you don't square a tennis ball, if it ain't going forward, it's going up or down.
That's true.
I'll send you our broken ones, Eric.
I'm in.
But I'll have more for you next time. But
Awesome.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Brian. I appreciate you taking the lead on this. These a few weeks you're on here with us, and hope you can stick around. And Coach Erich, thanks again. I know you guys probably have busy schedules these days. So, no, I mean, I know our guys greatly appreciate it. We're getting, we get good feedback on this from the coaches and the players that log in. I do want to kind of promote something though as we close, that that podcast called Locked In, on whether it's iTunes or Spotify. We had a good I had a good conversation with both Erich and Coach Billings. Coach Pfohl's episode came out last week, but Billings, I think you're going to be out tomorrow. You're going to be published tomorrow. So there's a lot of different perspectives there from all walks of life within the game, whether it's, development at the professional level or the college level, as well as scouting, recruiting at all different levels. So, for the coaches there, there's a lot of information there that you can use to pass on to your players, or if you feel, if you feel like you'd like to share that with your players, then, there's a lot of good information. And then especially for parents, I think they get a lot out of it as well. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat bar. I'll send it to you guys all directly, however you want, how to get on there and listen to those. But it's proven to be kind of a good resource and tool for the people that want to listen in. So, but Coach Tony, Coach Tim, Coach Ralphie, Victor, Coach Bill, Jay, I don't know if you're still on here. I really, thanks for getting on here, and trying to in the information. I think it's important that we all are on the same page with as many things as possible. So that's just from a development standpoint, so we all understand what we're trying to accomplish with our development system. So, okay.
Love it.
Hey, no problem.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We'll be up here next Thursday, 5:00 Pacific. So that's 8:00 Eastern. I hope that's not too late for you guys over there. We do have guys from Hawaii that get in here too. So we're just kind of trying to get it in the middle. Because they're 6 hours behind you guys in Orlando. So different world. So, but thanks everybody. Hope you guys got something out of it, and we will see you guys next week. And if you guys have any questions whatsoever, just feel free to reach out to me. And store them for next week too. So, all right.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Awesome,
you,
guys.
coach.
Thank you all.
Sir.
Take care. Thank you, Coach.
See you guys.